Most of us have heard the term we're living in crazy times. And of course, you're hearing it on the radio and you're hearing it on the internet with everything else that's taking place, particularly with the coronavirus. Things have shut down. Things are different. We don't know how to react to certain things or even how to do the things that we were so familiar with. I was thinking about that particularly and went back and looked at a story that we're pretty familiar with out of Daniel. Daniel and his three friends are taken into captivity. And if you want to talk about changes that have taken place, they go from their Jewish heritage and Nebuchadnezzar takes them into Babylon. What all changes for them? What all do they have to get used to all over again? Well, it takes them 3 years apparently, because the first chapter of Daniel says that they have to train and get ready for that. They have to learn. But it's not just about new foods and new cultures and new language. They've got to become so adept at all of these things that they are useful in the service of Nebuchadnezzar. And that's what it says about them. They had the ability for serving in the king's court, and he ordered him to teach them the literature, talking about the one who was in charge, literature and language of the Chaldeans. When I think about the things that we are dealing with in our society, are they anywhere close to what's going on for them? And yet, it's easy for us, if we're not careful, to allow the fear of all the things that we're uncertain of to capture us and to keep us from serving the Lord. Well, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not really sure what to do right here. And so we find ourselves maybe not doing hardly anything. That wasn't true in the story of Daniel and his three friends. They made it their very heart and soul. Their intent was to make sure to serve the king. In fact, later on in chapter 1, it says that out of all of them, and it's talking about all the other people who had been brought before him to serve him, out of all of them, not one was found like Daniel or Hananiah or Mishael and Azariah. So they entered the king's personal service. Verse 20 tells us he found them 10 times better than anybody else. Now, I believe that God was involved in some of that God gave them those abilities, but that doesn't tell us about the way that they served. What would be the temptation? I think the temptation would be, we're not serving our king anymore. Why would we want to do such a good job for someone else like Nebuchadnezzar? Why would we want to make him look good? Why would we want to serve to our utmost? It's because of this one point. They realized they weren't just serving the king, they were serving the king. They were serving their Father in heaven. And so they served with all their might. They did everything they could to do the best job that they could do as well. Were they so nervous that it paralyzed them? Were they so scared about everything that was going on around them that it just kept them from doing anything well? No, not at all. I came across an article that a friend of mine had posted the other day on Facebook. Appreciated this very much. You know that not everything that comes across Facebook is worthy of talking about, but this talks about C.S. Lewis, and it comes from one of his quotes that he wrote all the way back in 1948. Think about, as I read this, think about all of the points that seem so familiar to where we are today. The question was asked, what would C.S. Lewis say of our new COVID situation? Here's what he said back in 1948 about a mental shift required by living with the threat of the atomic bomb. Think about the points that are so similar. Here's what he says. We think a great deal too much of the atomic bomb. How are we to live in an atomic age? I'm tempted to reply, why, as you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year. Or as you would have lived in the Viking age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night. Or indeed as you might already be living in an age of cancer and all the other things that are taking place, of air raids, the age of railway accidents, and the age of motor accidents. In other words, do not let us begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, dear sir or madam, you and all whom you love were already sentenced to death before the atomic bomb was invented. And quite a high percentage of us were going to die in unpleasant ways. We had indeed one very great advantage over our ancestors, anesthetics, but we still have those now. And it is perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing long faces because the scientists have added one more chance of a painful and premature death to a world which already bristled with such chances, and in which death itself was not a chance at all, but a certainty. This is the first point to be made, and the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we are all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let the bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, all kinds, not huddled together, he says, like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies, and then he puts in quotes, a microbe can do that. We certainly understand that today, don't we? But they need not dominate our minds. My encouragement to you is don't allow what's going on around you right now to dominate your thinking. We still serve the Lord. And until the Lord takes us home, we'll go about doing lovely things, honorable things, the human things, all to his glory and to his service.